when Romans chapter 11, in verse 18, but I'd like to go ahead and start in 17. But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, and became a partaker with them of the rich root of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches, but if you do boast against them, remember that it is not you who supports the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches were broken off so that I might be grafted in. Quite right, we were broken off for their unbelief, but you stand by your faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Behold then the kindness and severity of God. To those who fell, severity, but to you, God's kindness, if you continue in his kindness. Otherwise you also will be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut off from what is by nature a wild olive tree, and were grafted, contrary to nature, into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? I'll stop here. Okay, and we had stopped at, well, we were going to start back up at 18. Do not boast against the branches. So Paul has been talking about the basically trying to tell the readers of this letter about how to accept the Jews, and really kind of telling the Jews how to accept the Gentiles, Christians. And these are Christians, we're not talking unbelievers. We're talking about believers on both sides of this here. I did a little background study, very brief, on the time period of what this was, where we're at in this. I don't know the exact time, but it's around about the 50s. And no, I'm not talking about the 1950s, which is where we immediately go to, but around 50-ish or so. And during that history, about 48, 49, one of the Caesars, one of the rulers at that time, I'm trying to remember his name, I don't know, we'll call him Doofus for lack of a better name. But anyways, apparently there were a lot of riots and uprising in Rome at the time because of really the Jews were rioting against the Christians, and they were really making a big to-do about it, kind of like today. You just get these uncontrolled riots. And what is Rome government or policy, number one policy? What is Rome's number one policy? Peace. By the sword. Peace. Okay? You can be upset as long as I don't see it. You know, that kind of thing. You do what you want, but don't show it. And so that Caesar kicked all the Jews out of Rome. And they were exiled, if I can call it exile, seems like an extreme word, for about 5 years or so. There's an interesting tie that some of those Jewish people went to Antioch and went to these other places where they met apparently Lydia and all the other Christians, and that's how they became Christians, was from there. So when the new Roman emperor got in, Nero, he opened up the door and allowed the Jews to come back in. So now here comes these Christian Jews back in. And remember, only 5 years to 10 years at most, there's probably still a lot of bitter blood about that going in. So you got to realize the natural distrust among them all. Okay, so that's kind of what's going on here. That's kind of the background political part of all of this and why such an emphasis is going on here. I just find that fascinating about that period of time. So then he starts talking about, we talked about the dough and about being, you're really all the same lumps at dough, and we're just going to cut you out of that, or you're still the same part of that dough. Then he switches to this other metaphor of the olive tree. What is significant about the olive tree? What are some things we know about the thing that he's going to be talking about?
It was one of their main crops, if you want to call it that, olive oil,
Yeah.
and wood.
Yeah, we've seen evidence of over almost 6,000 years worth of olive tree as an industry, if you will, or as a product that they would use. The olive apparently was used for a whole lot of stuff. I mean, everything from medicines to oil, right? What was it? Cosmetics. They would use it for like a deodorant type of stuff. Just all sorts of things were used for the olive tree. Surprised no one said the cocktail. Oh, sorry.
Wrong crowd.
Bad joke. Wrong crowd. The wrong crowd. I should know my room, right? Not that I know anything about it. I just read about that. So anyways, the earliest reference of the olive tree, Genesis chapter 8, in the flood. What did that bird, the dove or whatever that was?
Olive branch.
He brought an olive branch. We have an idiom, reaching out with an olive branch, right? To show that peace, which was, at that time in Genesis, was the peace of God's against humankind. That was at that marking of the peace of that conflict there. There's birds. We have back in Isaiah, which I think is where this is from, in Isaiah 11, it talks about the root of Jesse, and they use as the illustration the olive branch and growing a root from him to continue, because the olive tree is one of those naturally grown, right, in that area, and there are the cultivated ones, and there are the wild ones. The wild olive trees will grow fast, little fruit, but they grow up real quick, almost like shrubs. But the cultivated ones are slow. And I've seen pictures of big, huge stumps of olive trees that would be hundreds of years old. This is what they are. They're gnarly looking things. And normally what they would do is they would take a cultivated olive branch, this is the normal, and put it onto a wild. They'd stub that wild olive tree down, and they would graft in an old one into the into this wild one. That's the way it normally is. Find here later, it's the other way around.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing that makes it a little
And that's why at the end here at 24, he talks about contrary to nature, is that Paul recognizes, I'm talking backwards here about that. So it's an interesting thing about, because I tried to find out, well, why do you graft wild into a cultivated one, a young into a cultivated? So I went through trying to figure out the why, and they don't.
They don't, right.
They don't. But God has done it this way, or at least in this illustration or this metaphor.
But the idea is the roots of a wild one are more disease resistant, bug resistant.
They grow quicker.
They grow, well, not so much they grow quicker as much as they're hardier in that type of soil.
Mm-hmm.
But you want better fruit.
Right.
In this case, olive, I don't know if it's considered fruit or not, but citrus and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So you want the seedless or whatever, you put that on a good solid root
Right.
for it to grow.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that's where we're at with this. I just kind of wanted to lay out some understanding here. So in 18, when which he continues in his sentence, says, "Do not boast against the branches." I think that is this part about them coming back to Rome, is this the young guys, the Gentiles, okay, weren't like lording over. Oh, you Jewish people come back in. But you were the bad guys, and we're bringing you back in. We're being good to you. We're being nice to you, and that boasting over that. At least that's the way I'm seeing of this. Because Paul warns them, but if you do boast against them, remember that it is not you who supports the root, but the root who supports you. Okay. So he's reminding.
When I read through, it kind of resonated with me that he's talking about the Gentiles versus Jews. And so he's telling the Gentiles not to boast.
That's right.
Okay,
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying
The other way
Jews
around.
that-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because remember,
I think every time he talked about you, he was talking about, he was talking to the Gentiles.
I think so too. I think it's you all.
Yeah.
It's you all Gentiles.
Yeah.
I think so too. And the reminder is that God grafted you into that. He didn't start you new. You don't have a new. You're not the replacement, right? That replacement theory.
I think that's the difference, is that you're not replacing the branches cut off.
No.
You're being grafted on.
You're being
to the
grafted
solid
into the
root
existing.
that's got the nutrition, yeah.
Right.
They're totally separate.
Right. So we have all of the good attributes available to us. We have the stories of all of Old Testament, of how God moved. That is now part of my history.
Right.
That is all part of my faith that is now there. It's no longer, I have to start a new revelation, a new thing here. I have this history to back up my faith here. And I think it's kind of cool. Okay. Do not boast, that is who supports the root, blah, blah, blah. 19, you will say then, branches were broken off so that I might be grafted in. Quite right. What does this deal with the branches were broken off?
That though God chose the Jews way back to be a special people, the royal priesthood, they, for the most part, rejected God. So now God's working. It's just like even Paul himself became a missionary to the Gentiles. He's working a special work through the Gentiles at this stage. So at least temporarily, the Jews are ineffective on the sideline for the most part.
I think I go back to the idea that a branch that doesn't bear fruit, right? That they get cut off.
Yeah, it'd be like John 15:5. I'm the branch, you are the guy who they vine, ye are the branches.
Yeah, that kind of
If you
thing.
don't
That
bear much fruit.
right. Yeah, because I think that the root, the stump that he's talking about, goes back to to Abraham, right? So it's not just Jews in general. It's the God-fearing, God-believing Jews, right? That come from that stump. And if you're not a part of that, if you're not bearing that fruit of what was intended for the Jews, then you're of no use. You're just a branch that's hanging on there, absorbing nutrients for something that could be producing fruit, and so you get cut off. You get thrown to the wayside because you're not producing what you were intended to produce.
Like a hen that doesn't produce eggs anymore.
becomes, becomes Thursday's meal, yeah. But is it right for God to just cut those branches off? I mean, it seems pretty arbitrary to just say, no, you're out of here. What's the reason why?
Well, going to the metaphor, branches are taking nutrients for no reason, meaning there's no fruit. So when you cut off a branch, you're trying to drive the nutrients to the fruit-bearing limbs or branches, or it's causing the fruit ones to be crowded out, or shades in the wrong areas, or, you know, so, but the idea is they're not producing, is probably the main thing, or they're in the way of the tree as a whole
Okay.
developing properly.
So, in great risk of trying to stretch this metaphor beyond its capacity.
Yeah.
What were the Jews doing that deserved to be cut off?
They rejected Christ, the Messiah.
Yeah,
Yeah, ultimately that's it. Were there other things?
yeah, they were
That they're-
not acting in faith,
Not
Right.
having faith, right?
right? They were checking boxes for being Jews. The meaning of the law and everything had just gotten replaced with just an action, you know?
In many cases, hurting
Yeah.
The
Well,
overall,
yeah.
the overall, yeah.
faith or
Yeah.
religion, whatever you want to call it.
And what fruit were they producing? Other than reproduction of more Jews' babies,
Right.
what were they producing?
Jesus said not much.
Discord.
Not much,
And in fact, sometimes it was negative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Blind leading the blind.
yeah,
It's producing discord. So-
yeah. And so that's the reason why the
Yeah.
branches were cut off here. Wasn't arbitrary, kind of, I'm a mean God, so therefore I'm going to take you out.
But here they talk about cutting off, but could be grafted back later.
Yeah.
Where in other places, it's cut off and thrown into the fire.
Real quick on that. Apparently, the olive tree, if you cut off a branch and you can stick it back in the ground, it roots back up.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
exactly right.
which I find
Some
fascinating.
do, some don't, but I didn't know that was.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you get rid of them then? Well, you put them in the fire. Apparently, that's
Yeah, that's the thing.
another metaphor.
There you go.
Move on.
Crabgrass.
Could see.
I lost my place there.
2020.
Thank you very much. They were broken off for their unbelief, as mine says, but you stand by your faith. Then I think this is a caution, a reminder, whatever you want to do. Mine says, do not be haughty. Okay.
Conceited.
Conceded, yeah.
Conceited. Right.
Well, it says high-minded.
High-minded, right. Right after that, there's a little phrase, but fear.
Yeah.
Wow. What is this kind of fear? I mean, other than the logical, you better fear God.
Right.
I brought you into this world, I'll take you out.
I think it goes back to the whole idea of, I know, I pray this all the time, is let me continually be reminded of who I am and who you are. And that position of authority
Right.
that comes with it, that he is creator of all things. You know?
Have you ever guys been in a place of being with someone who is of a supreme authority over you? I mean, the physical presence of that. Yeah. Yeah. It is a completely different emotional thing to think that I stand in a place of this high authority. I know the guy puts his pants on the same way as I do, but there's something about that, being in that presence of that here.
And you feel it.
You feel it. You really.
It is really a big person, so to
Yeah,
speak.
I'm talking multi-layered.
They almost have that aura around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mine cross-references Hebrew 3:19, which says, "So we see that they could not enter in because of unbelief."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It could not, but belief then is the repair of that, right? They were broken off because of their unbelief, but you stand by your faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. Continue on here, because that's not the end of it. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Full stop. Just because you're grafted in does not make you so super special that you can't be replaced. I mean, if you put yourself, again, it's, as Mickey says, realize your position in God. We are not telling God what to do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, this is all about him.
Yeah. It's all about
It's all about
and
you.
not about you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, see, that's where I wonder, does anybody have a different translation on verse 19 where it says, "Grace broken off so that I may be grafted in"? Because to me, it seems like
It's
it's a wrong, from my seat, it seems like it's the wrong perspective that, oh, they were taken away so there's room for me. And not that they were taken away because of their unbelief and everything, but because of my faith now I'm grafted in. It seems like that they're putting two things together, that there is a separation in from what
I'm so much more faithful that God got rid of them so that I could be in that special place.
Yeah. I made the 25-man roster so they cut somebody and get me in.
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
that kind of, it's almost that, well, again, the haughty, high-minded, arrogance positioning there.
Well, it needs building up steam,
Yes,
saying, you know, you will say branches are broken off, and then he says that's true, they were broken off, but he's wanting them not to be aired, not
Yeah.
to be.
Because of unbelief.
Yeah, they were broken off not because of you,
yeah,
unless
It's unrelated, yeah.
because you would make the team better.
Because of
But they were
unbelief.
broken off because of their unbelief.
Yeah. Because of their unbelief.
Right, right.
And you stood by faith, it says.
Mhm.
22.
Well, I guess what I meant by building up steam, in 19, he's saying you, meaning the Gentiles, you know, and then he goes on down and talks about, you know, so that you don't become proud, so don't get too high-minded thinking, yeah, they were broken off, that I might be grafted in. You know, so don't be too proud of your own self, is kind of what the take I was getting on it.
Right, yes.
Right.
22.
I don't know if that was helpful or not. Well, what you were asking, I'm not sure.
That's good.
Behold then the kindness and severity of God. Kindness and severity. How can you have both?
God is the only one that can hold both love and righteousness together.
Justice,
Mhm.
And mercy.
yes. Yeah.
Because sometimes we think justice means mercy, and it doesn't. Those are two ends there.
Yeah. It goes back to the whole idea of this being all about God,
Yeah.
right? Whose justice is it? Whose mercy? It's His. He's the one that decides what is just.
Right.
He's the one that decides
Right.
what is being merciful. You know, and I think that's what we forget sometimes,
Yeah.
because we'll say, that's not fair. Oh, it's not fair to who? Not fair to you, in your mind, but to God, that's
Right.
the way it is.
I mean, the vine dresser is judged by the quality of his vine. So
That's
they're
right.
going to be he's going to expertly manicure the vine, so the vine is the healthiest it can be and producing the best fruit it can. And that's ultimately, when you see the vine, the quality of the vine, you see the quality of the vine dresser, in this case God.
Yes.
So the severity, you have to be severe if it's in order for it's the best thing for the vine itself. And that's what everybody's going to see. That's what everybody's opinion of God is going to be based off. What the body of his believers. So that's what you're seeing.
The olive tree's not, is not looked at and rated according to the number of branches.
Right.
But by the quality of the fruit that's being,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So you don't think that God is bipolar?
He's not bipolar.
It's perfectly just,
Yeah.
perfectly.
And perfectly severe.
Yeah. What,
I mean,
you go back to the ultimate you know, why did God decide to pick a people?
that were stiff-necked and,
Yeah, well, just to pick a people in general, right?
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to show the other nations
Yeah.
who he was through these people, right? That's the purpose why he picked. And if they're not fulfilling that purpose, you know, the whole thing is about getting them to fulfill getting us. That's why we go through sanctification, right? Getting us to time, you know, little bit by little bit, fulfill greater our purpose, allow more of Christ to shine through our lives, right? He prunes us like he prunes the olive tree, you know. He prunes the branches, prunes us as a branch, and gets rid of the, you know, I know with crepe myrtles, every year I go by and they're just the little suckers that are on there, you know, you get rid of them. And I think that's what he does in our lives too, you know, is we get those little things cut off that don't serve any purpose, you know, that,
we do not benefit.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Happens in our lives as well.
yeah.
If we leave the metaphor for a moment, do we have things that God cuts out of our lives for purpose? I mean, there's a reason, right?
Yeah. And I think it's sometimes God asks us to cut those things out, and sometimes if we don't, he will cut them out in his mercy.
Right.
He will, in his justice and his mercy, he
And
will
his
cut them
kindness,
out.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is for our good. Wow. It's almost getting deep. Behold the kindness and severity of God to those who fell, severity, but to you, kindness. And then that warning, if you continue in his kindness, otherwise you will also be cut off. Continued in his kindness? What is he meaning that?
If you stayed on God's good side, I would put it.
Is that implying following some kind of religious regimen?
I mean,
Is that what that,
I mean,
following
you'd have
that
to say
kindness?
no if you look at the rest of the scripture.
Right.
So,
Reading
if
ahead.
you try to read those two,
Read,
three
yeah,
words,
exactly, yeah, pulling things out of context is always bad.
Right.
Is always bad here. Yeah, and the answer is no to that, to my question, of course.
The trick question.
I know. Are you really listening? 23, and they also, if they continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. Okay. They have fallen, but they can get back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they believe in
Right.
it, or drop their unbelief, it's a double negative.
Right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
It's an amazing picture of mercy, forgiveness. I just find it amazing.
But it's interesting, this whole thing talks about the fear of God, for lack of a better phrase. And I remember as a kid getting confused over that. It's like, why would I fear? And you think of fear, in some ways, it's just a trembling fear, like a dog that just sits there and shakes in the corner, afraid he's going to get beat. That's not the kind of fear. I treated it like my father. I got to be careful because not everybody's dad was like mine, of course. But I respected him, I loved him, and I knew he took care of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew he had that big fat belt around his waist.
Yep.
And I didn't fear the belt, just a piece of leather. Well, but if I pull my belt out too fast, it does that flop, 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 flop. I still get a shiver in my spine. Because I remember if I did something wrong, I was told what I did wrong, and I feared that. And I think that's the way I consider God's punishment, is that when he punishes, I know I deserved it, except for one time, but that's another story.
It was
I
your-
stand my
it was
ground
your
on that
sister's
one.
fault.
I was innocent on that one. But other than that, I deserved it. I still remember that. That was the last one I had, actually.
Sounds like you need to go to counseling.
I don't have any baggage.
What are you talking about?
But it's that's the fear that I think that we have here is that I knew my dad was a judge. Righteous is the right word, but that if I got a whipping, it was because I deserved it. And it wasn't inappropriate. I didn't get hit by the head
Right.
you know, or these things. I got a right to seat, and, you know, but I deserved it, and I knew I deserved it, and I loved him to death otherwise. I mean, because he told me why and what for and all this bit, and I understood, and I remembered not to do it again. And I think that's the kind of the fear of God that is confusing to a lot of people. And even these olive branches, they were cut off because they disobeyed. And they got the ultimate separation. They got kicked out of the house, so to speak. Not that they couldn't come back.
That's the whole prodigal son situation.
Yeah.
Yes. 24, if you were cut off from what is by nature a wild olive tree and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? How much more?
We will see next week.
We'll see next week, because we're stopping here.
I think the key is what allows them to be grafted back in,
Yeah.
right?
I think the implication is they're already of that wood, so therefore they should be able to be grafted in easily and take root. But like you're
So
saying,
what's the one,
What's
the
the-
one key that allows them?
allows it back in.
Right. And it says it there, because there's only one thing that one way that we can please God. That's by faith. And that's the key. And
Okay. All right, we do need to stop here because of time. What are you guys praying for?